Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to This Is a Revolution. Back for another week, here to discuss the first show of 2025. I am joined by my good friend, Mr. Dave the Mark. Dave, we're here. It's now February as we're recording. Your dry January is over.
Yes, my friend. Yes, it is. And it felt so good. There's so many cool things about yesterday. Like, back at the 229, absolutely banged out 229. Biggest 229 crowd for a long time. A really interesting show in terms of so much stuff for us to get our teeth into and talk about. So many, it was just like a really buzzing atmosphere. Loved the fact that I had my allocated seat for the first time with the front row season tickets, which was awesome. But also what I found was quite interesting was it changed the dynamic of the 229 because it's like the unwritten seating plan that people used has had to be shaken up. And it meant that the noisier sections were moved around a little bit, which I thought was a really cool atmosphere yesterday. Not just for the number of people that were there, but for the noise of it and who people were getting like cheering for and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we've got Southampton this weekend, where we already know 5 of the what will probably be 7 matches announced, which is absolutely class. Assuming we're going to get at least one women's match and either 2 women's matches or a tag match coming our way, or potentially an 8-match card with a couple of women's matches and a tag match.
Yeah, what I thought we could do, Dave, because obviously we're going to cover off the show at 229, but we've got almost a full card, like we said, for Southampton. So maybe we can, at the end, we'll light touch on what the card is and maybe give our speculation on 1 or 2 of the matches we think could come up or who might be involved.
Sounds good, mate. Sounds good.
Yeah, mate.
You know it's a return to the 229 when literally the very first person that I saw was Rob, who was updating us with the new RevPro cards.
Yes, Rob's giving me some as well, yeah.
There is Mercedes Monet.
Oh, I love that.
And my favourite one of all, my very own match graphic.
Oh, that's incredible.
Dave the Mark versus Minoru Suzuki from our fan Q&A as to which wrestler would be the one I'd want to get in the ring with. So absolutely love that. It's just quality to back, mate.
Yeah, it was really great. I really enjoyed it. It's only my second 229, and at one point I was like, "Am I going to make it?" Because I mentioned I had a bit of a cold, and being on the wrong side of 40 now, mate. Like, you get a cold, it takes you out. Like, genuinely, I've had 2 colds in the last year that have taken me out, and that's never happened before. And the last time, famously, it did take me out was the day of the 229 Kanji versus Mackenzie.
Yeah, I remember
that show. So I was Saturday. I was lying in bed, got my brand new TV up in the bedroom. Not had a TV in there for 16 years, and it's changed my life. I'm not gonna lie. TV on, watching, chilling, and got ready for the 229. Now before I get into some wrestling chat, Dave, last week I mentioned about me being a cool adult and my smart light bulbs, right?
Yeah.
So I did what I said I was going to do, and I ordered some more for the other rooms in the house, and I now have them in here. And I can add a little bit of a hue to proceedings, and if things do get a bit steamy about RevPro and our love for it, we can put the red light on.
George, you don't have to turn on your red light.
And it also has a really cool feature where, let me see if it allows me to do it on this one. I hope that's compensating. This is all really great. I can change it to whatever colour I want, and
that's really nice. I like that.
This will be really nice for in here. But this is what I was looking for, Dave. This is what I found the other day that I didn't even know was a thing. Here we go.
George is a raver.
Now,
Love it, mate. I love it.
could we sit in here with me having this on the whole time? Imagine that.
Yeah.
That was people
But
dropping off after 1 minute.
warning sign up that says, warning contains strobe lighting, not suitable for epileptics.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. But yeah, that is. Oh God, have I still got? I've thought I changed it off the theme then, and I thought I was still left it on Raven. Yeah, I just thought, you know what? This is how cool my life is now, mate. A TV in the bedroom with smart light bulbs that I can put different colours on.
Mate, this is like middle-aged life, right?
So, mate, you know what it told me? I need to get out and get some bloody wrestling because clearly that is what was is getting me through. And look, I had wrestling the previous weekend. I was at GCW, but that was very much the pre-season friendly before the pre-season, before the regular season game, the community shield, if you will, before kickoff of the Premier League. Yeah, it was so great to be there. Lovely little Nando's beforehand, even if there was a lot of Nando's slander coming my way from various
Mate, you've got
people.
a weird Nando's order.
If it wasn't for the fact of people saying about my Nando's order being weird, it was people going, lemon and herb, what's that all about? It's like, come on, like, yeah, like I said, I was trying to
Mate, I'll
balance.
take you to a Nando's. I'll show you. I'll show you the hidden secrets of the Nando's menu, including the
Okay,
little halloumi and pineapple burger that you can make on the side.
right, that's a deal. That's what we're doing next time. Then, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
halloumi and pineapple burger, love it. But no, like you said, it was lovely to be there. It was a lovely day for it as well. Like genuinely getting into London the previous weekend was so wet and miserable. Yesterday, blue skies, sun was out, walked across. And yeah, I walked over again from Waterloo. It was a nice little walk over to Great Portland Street from there. Got the Nando's and yeah, just chilled in the queue. Spoke to a few people. Rob was there. He actually arrived just as I was getting there, and he pulled out two new cars for me as well.
Love
Um,
that.
and yeah, it was my it was a Zach Knight one and a Dave Bradshaw one to go with the
Oh,
rest.
class.
And
Yeah.
yeah, which was it was lovely. And yeah, I had young Will Warrener with me, who people will have heard mention on the pod before. Lovely lad, but please say
If you
hi to
watched the
Will.
show on demand, you would have heard him.
You will have heard him. You'll have seen him. You will know who Will Warrener is just by
Brings so much energy to a show, but
very
in all
effervescent.
the positive ways.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah,
a lot of time for that lad.
yeah.
Mate, so like on contrast, I got to what before I went to the show,
Mm-hmm.
given how I didn't leave the house till 2 p.m. for my 60-mile drive to London, whereas normally I'd be queuing up by then, which meant that I got to eat dinner like at home before I left,
Mm-hmm.
rather than having to have a meal deal in the queue.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the Royal Rumble. I watched AEW Collision. Uh, I played the Xbox with my son for the first time ever. I felt like I had like an actual family day. Like, because like the kids come and watch the wrestling with me. And then went and did all the wrestling on top of that. Like, this is class. I really like the idea of there being, less focus on having to kind of do all the extra for a day out at the wrestling, like thinking about what time you're gonna have to get there, and like just getting to go and enjoy it.
Yeah, I can imagine that as well. Like you said, it does mean you get to do all those extra little family bits as well, doesn't it? And look, as much
But
as you
when
love
you
the
do it
wrestling,
every
like
week,
yeah,
like but an extra hour at home, like, is quite a big deal.
yeah, and like you said, it's probably stuff that you weren't doing beforehand, right? Like getting that time with the son to play a bit of Xbox and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that's what it's all about, mate. I love that, and all because you've now got your own dedicated seat as well. Love it.
Yeah, got my own little seat. Lovely. Made
Mate,
friends with the people around me.
yeah, it's great, isn't it? Like you'll be, you'll be next to them. Like you said, as long as they're not assholes, and they weren't. Clearly, they weren't. But yeah, as long as you've got good people around you, it's all right. And yeah, from what I've seen, you've got some good people there, and it was a good spot
Yeah.
because obviously we were sat right behind you. Um, mate, you mentioned about watching the Royal Rumble. Now I'm just gonna see if I can bring something up. I don't know if it's gonna show, but whether this will come through on our recording or not. But I don't know if you'll be able to see or not. But I take it you'd have been very happy about this. Very happy indeed.
I was very happy, mate. I was yeeting away in my living room.
Oh, yeah. As soon as I saw it, and for anyone, if that's not come through, because I'm not as technologically advanced as I would like to be, I've just brought up Jey Uso's theme and just played it for Dave just for a minute there, because before when Dave said about WWE and Royal Rumble, I was joking with him that he was going to do all this Jey Uso to RevPro and top 10 matches he could have. Then he goes and wins
Top
the
10
fucking Royal
WWE
Rumble.
talents to debut in RevPro this year.
Yeah, and then he wins the fucking Royal Rumble, so he's not going to be any. Well, I mean, you say that, right? He's going to be a WrestleMania main event there, and we've shown this year that WrestleMania main event is hold RevPro championships. So,
Yeah, that's very true, mate. That's very true.
oh,
Never
look at
write it
that
off.
Linkin
I tell you what,
background.
I really, really enjoyed the Royal Rumble. Like, it was so unpredictable, and that's one of the things that I find hardest about TV wrestling. I
Mm-hmm.
don't mind when the wrestling I'm watching live has an element of predictability to it,
Yep.
because normally predictability just means logical,
Yep.
and you want your wrestling to be logical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it needs to be logical. Otherwise, it's WCW from like the late 90s and it's just swerving and swerving and
Yep.
swerving. Um, but when it's on TV, like, there has to be enough, there has to be even more to get you captured because you haven't got the live experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into it kind of, I put my money on CM Punk to win the Rumble, and
Same.
then when he was eliminated, I was like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. It's going to be John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
And
Same.
then when Cena was eliminated, you're like, oh my god, I'd never even contemplated like Jey Uso being the one. But
Yeah.
it's also really logical because it sets up Jey Uso versus Gunther for
Yeah.
like part of the Rumble and part of Mania, and then you've got whatever avenue you want to go down with Cody. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool, and it's just nice to be enjoying some wrestling that I don't have to take as seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I know,
Yeah.
like, I don't have to take RevPro as seriously as I do. No, no one's asking me to, but try telling my brain not to take it as seriously as I do. So it's quite nice just to be able to put it on and just enjoy it. And like,
Yeah.
I thought that Cody and Kevin Owens ladder match was absolutely class. I loved it. I
Yeah.
think it was my favourite ladder match that I've seen in a long time.
Which says it all about what was said about ladder matches. Now, I've only watched the actual Rumble matches myself, and yeah, I enjoyed them for what they were, and I always enjoy the Rumble. It was interesting because, like you said about predictability, and I'm with you that wrestling needs a level of predictability, but it also needs you to make you believe that even the predictable matches, actually, someone could come away with a win. And the one I'll go to with that, using a real good example in RevPro, True and Lacey versus Sunshine Machine in Southampton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Predictable match that made you think, actually, this isn't gonna go the way I thought. And I did see like the apparent hot favourites for each, according to betting odds, was Charlotte Flair and John Cena, and then Charlotte Flair wins the Women's Royal Rumble, which, look, I'm a big Charlotte Flair fan, right? Always have been. I think she's probably the most overhated woman in
Mm-hmm.
WWE. Um,
I never felt that the
and
criticisms were fair when I
no,
watched it back in the day, like
yeah,
5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago,
yeah,
to even when I wasn't watching it and you're still aware of how much there is. Like,
yeah. I think she's one of those people that sometimes I think she's lost the level of consistency she had, which is fine. Like wrestlers go through that, but actually at her top, really, really great. I mean, her match with Asuka at WrestleMania 34, while I don't think it was the correct booking decision, it was a great match, and like would absolutely say that. Um, but her
her
coming
series
back
of
in,
matches with Becky Lynch, like,
yeah,
they were so
exactly,
good.
yeah,
The Evolution match that they had at the first ever all women's pay per view,
yeah.
like, that was mint. I loved
I
that.
mean, I was there for the triple threat that they had at WrestleMania 32 with Mercedes, Becky, and Charlotte as well. Like, class match. That was, I mean, for me, that was the match of the night. It was such a good match. But yeah, it was like her coming back and then winning it after a sustained period. Even though I don't watch, it's kind of like, okay. So I was going into the men's rumble with a bit of trepidation. I thought the way they did it was really good. It had a good mixture of everything that you want to see in there. It was paced really nicely. And it got down to the final four, or the final three, should say. And you had obviously Logan Paul, John Cena, and Jey Uso. And I said, for me, now, this is going to sound both like a double-edged sword, right? Jey Uso doesn't do a lot for me as a singles guy, right? I will admit how over he is, and I think sometimes you get guys who are better in a tag team than they are as singles. And for me, that is Jey Uso, right? Do I think he's the right guy to main event at WrestleMania based on what he does in the ring? No, I don't. But this is WWE we're talking about as well, where that's not as big a prerequisite for it as everything else. And when he came out and you saw that whole arena yeeting, whether you
like
get it or
full
not, whether
on,
it's
like, was it 70,000 people stadium? Like,
it's not for me, but it seems to be for a lot of people.
yeah,
And that's
and
the
also,
one that interested me the most out of those three.
like, is he going to main event WrestleMania? Like, is he going to go on last?
Yeah, I don't believe he is.
I don't think so either.
I
Like,
think Cody's going on.
he'll surely challenge Gunther, and that will either be the Saturday night main event, or even then it might not even main event because there's so much stuff going on with Punk, Reigns, Rollins, Cody. Like, there's so many things you could do there.
Yeah.
But he still will go down as a Rumble winner, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah, just on touch on that before we actually go into RevPro, because that's what we're here for. But we seem to be, because we're both watching WWE and actually finding little bits gripping us lately. And I said to you that the one thing that I really liked about WWE that I don't get as much of in AW is that whole Punk, Seth, Roman bit. Couple of minutes that set up multiple different stories there, or different avenues for stories. It makes me go, I want to watch Monday and see what happens. Right, that was genuinely what got me there.
It's very Attitude Era in the not in the all the things we think of as the Attitude Era, the kind of the dangerous, cool elements, all of these things. It's not that. It's the similarity to the Attitude Era is in the sense that there was always four top guys, or four, or maybe you could argue six top guys, and everything was centered around them, and you had all of these rivalries. And that's what it feels like now, where, you know, you could be a Drew McIntyre guy, but I could be a Roman guy. Somebody else could be a Seth guy. Somebody else can be a Punk guy. And none of them are out and out heels. None of them are out and out faces. They're all kind of three-dimensional shades of grey. And like, I'm into it. You know, credit where credit's due as well. Like, I'm really into the Toni Storm storyline in AEW. I think she's doing incredible work there. Like, that's probably the thing from that product that's capturing me. And I'm really, you know, I'm up for the New Japan Cup that is coming in the next few weeks, which is always an event I really look forward to as well. So it feels like not just RevPro's back, but wrestling is back.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's in a week, almost a week from today. Noah are doing their Junior Tag League, which I'm going to be watching. I've got my Wrestle Universe login ready for that, so I can watch a bit of True and Lacey in Japan as well. Like,
and do you know what's absolutely mad about that? I can't believe that True and Lacey don't have a cage match profile.
Shut up.
Yeah, so they're going out to Pro Wrestling Noah and they don't have a cage match profile. There's a tag team profile for True and Lacey, but there's no Mark True, there's no Kieran Lacey.
That's crazy.
So yeah, and it's like Cameron Kai doesn't have one, yet he wrestled one for an AEW championship last year and two a New Japan event.
Yeah.
Yeah, feels
We
like
need to get onto the people at Cage Match and get these
yeah,
profiles
someone
sorted.
needs to do that. I champion to make sure that all the RevPro events are on there
Yeah.
whenever I spot ones missing from the archives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously people sending through the times of matches and stuff like that. So yeah, someone needs to get in touch with them for Cameron, Kai, Mark, Drew, and Kieran Mason.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, let's get on to the 229, shall we? Oh, what a show, my friend. What a show. This was
Yeah,
one that delivered everything I expected it to. I kind of went
over
into
delivered in a
this.
couple of places for me.
Yeah, nice. I love that. I feel that there was like three matches I expected to be the top matches of the show, and probably left the top matches of the show for me. There was one match which was in that three that I thought could be match of the night, and I think massively over delivered on even my expectations of it, and was comfortably for me the match of the show. Which
Yeah,
is crazy with some of the stuff we had. It had everything. The show. It had drama. It had hard hitting wrestling. It had emotion. Like it was wonderful.
it was a really, really good table setting show, wasn't it? Like
Yes. Yeah.
they've absolutely set a lot of things up. So I was doing kind of like the mental maths in my head of the calendar. Um, Southampton this weekend. Then they've very, very nicely given my wife and I our wedding anniversary off. Thank you very much, Andy
Excellent work,
Corden, for
Andy
that.
Corden.
The 16th of February, there's no show, and that would have been one that I would have found very difficult to justify because that's our 13-year wedding anniversary.
You just had to take him,
And
mate.
then it's Sheffield 229, Coventry, and then Epic Encounter in
Mm-hmm.
Wolves. So you kind of thinking like by Epic Encounter, we're going to need a main event for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that's going to be RKJ versus Michael Oku.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I feel like we're being told to think it's going to go,
Yeah.
but it might not be. I know you'd already predicted that could happen before then. And then you think about all the tags, all the championships, the women's championship. Will Mercedes be on that show? Will she not? I think we'll know sooner rather than later because I think if they can make it happen, that it would have happened by now, or will come out very soon. They're not. That's not going to be a last minute announcement in it,
No.
is it? That's going to be a buy your tickets, boom.
Yeah.
But if not, I'd imagine there'll be some kind of like number one contenders match or something like that. Something very, or like a big cutthroat collective match, something like proper to sink your teeth into for the women's side of things. And then cruiserweight, we've got lots of people coming out with. We know Leo Rush has got his opportunity whenever he can take it. And then with Robbie X and Stephen Wolf like fighting this weekend, that's going to be really interesting. It's a bit like something that I liked and sometimes disliked. I always felt like with AEW, there would often be like people who would say things like Revolution's only in like a few weeks' time, but why don't we know all the matches yet? We should know all the matches now. And I was always on the other side of it where I was like, well, you can kind of see what's coming, but they haven't confirmed them yet because the stories haven't reached the point where the match will be announced. But you can kind of see the breadcrumbs of where it's going. And sometimes you'd get that wrong. Sometimes you think it's going down path A and it goes down path B. And it very much feels like that with RevPro at the moment, especially in that main event scene where so many people yesterday came out and said that they want the championship. So yeah, a really good table setting like episode of RevPro, and now we're on to the next episode, and we'll get some more developments whilst also getting some big matches. We've got the championship match in Southampton, Manders versus Leon Slater. That's tasty, isn't it? Yeah, like just I'm really, really happy with it, mate. there's always a little bit of a fear for me that when I haven't done something that I love for a really long time, and then I go to do it, there's always this fear of being like, what if I leave a bit flat?
Mm-hmm.
What if it doesn't deliver? What if I don't love it anymore? And I get like this kind of overthinking. I got to the show yesterday. I sat down, and the first match was Kuro versus Robbie X, and you're just like, boom! I love this.
Yeah.
That for me, that match really over delivered.
Yeah, I thought that was a really great way to start the show.
Yeah,
I think when we spoke about it, we were trying to call like which matches will go on where. It was
I
interesting.
wanted Leon versus Leon first because I wanted them to start with a real bang.
Yeah,
But they did
Yeah.
start with a real bang,
they
and
did.
they kept Leon versus Leon till later. So
Yeah.
that was such a good way of it being like, I got exactly what I wanted and more. I got my cake and I got to eat it because I got the big banger opening match, and then I got the real kind of star of the show match later on
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I
I
think
was.
Euro had a really hard job yesterday, right? Like, he's Mr. Hype, and there's loads of hype about him, but there's a potential for there to be too much hype about him,
Yeah.
and then it be like the phrase style over substance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it could be that he looks like a star, he walks like a star, he talks like a star, and then he gets in the ring and he's just average.
Yeah.
But it
There's
absolutely wasn't that, was it? Like,
no.
that lad's a real talent.
There's a term that I've heard recently, and ironically enough, it's usually used against Jey Uso, but it's referred to as a and then the bell rings wrestler, right?
Yeah,
Meaning
yeah,
like
yeah.
you've said everything you've said there, the whole package is there. Then they go and you're like, oh right, okay, could not apply that to this man whatsoever. So like we said, a lot of hype there. It was a good position to start because you're set, like we said, we're setting the stall out for what the year could be. So me and Adam, who I was sitting next to, we were kind of both going, which ones I'm playing devil's advocate. I was going Leon versus Leon because you start your year out on that.
Yep.
He said Robbie X versus Kuro, which you start your year out on one of the best cruiserweight wrestlers around, who feels reinvigorated by this Bullet Club
Yep.
association. Really reinvigorated. I love Robbie X, but for a while I was probably just taking for granted what you get with Robbie X because good guy Robbie X was doing good guy Robbie X things, and just this is just giving that a little bit more.
This is why people have like heel and face turns, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
creates a brand new character
Yeah.
and when it's done well, without actually having to move that far away from the original character.
No, because let's
I
be
feel like
honest.
Robbie's flourishing.
Yeah, all he's doing is he's just being a bit more of a dick, and which he's excelling in, by the way. Which, having met the bloke a couple of times, would not believe he's got that in him. But then maybe
Yeah.
actually, when I've seen some fans get a bit overeager, maybe I could believe it as well to a degree. But
Yeah.
apart from that, I'm putting on a coat of black painted trunks. Yeah, so and then you've got Mr. Hype coming out, who is got everything kind of going, and like he comes out, he looks flashy, he gets in the ring, and I love the way the match started. That for me was really big because the lights were down, he was doing this whole, and then you just see Robbie go. But I don't know if it was because of where we were sat. It just felt more aggressive than it would have done maybe if I was sat inside or watching on screen. There just seemed to be more impact, more aggressive. Like I don't know what it was. I just felt like I was right in the ring with them as that was happening. It was quite incredible, and the way they did that opening and Kuro getting to show off some of the flips and everything right away, I thought was a really great way to start. It was like no nonsense, bang,
Yeah.
we're getting into this, and it's
They
one of the
sold
things.
me on so many like finishes as well.
Yeah,
Because once they started and I started to see that Kuro was like good enough for them to be someone where it's like we're gonna get this, well, we're gonna fly this guy over every month.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And then I'm like, ooh, is he going to beat Robbie X? And then this be like a Star is Born moment,
Yeah.
a bit like a Zion.
Yeah.
And then are we going to, Zazai came in, impressed, has been there ever since.
Yeah.
Leon Cage came in, impressed, has been there ever since. Jay Joshua the same. I was like, is this going to be Kuro? Like,
Yeah.
do they know already? Is this an audition, or has the audition already happened through his work in France to the point where they're like, no, we're going to have this guy regularly. Let's light a fire underneath him. So I was genuinely believing that at times he was going to win that match.
Yeah. So was I.
And I think that if that was an audition, that's how I perceive everybody that comes in and debuts in RevPro, like that it's an audition. You look at the fact that like Taylor James, Sky Smithson, Anita Vaughan had all come over, weren't on the card yesterday, but were just there watching. All three Bryant brothers were there watching and chipping in. Like, this is them telling Andy that, like, don't forget us, we want to get involved, right?
Yeah, we're here, we're hungry, we're ready.
Yeah, exactly. And when somebody is debuting, it's making sure that they impress and they want to come back. I got to chat to Ike Navarro like after the show, and he was like, and I told him that I thought it was his best match he's had in RevPro so far.
Yeah.
And he was like, cool, I hope it was good enough. I hope I get to come back again soon.
Yeah.
Like, people want to wrestle for RevPro. Like, it is. That's one of the things that I've learned the most from getting to kind of interact with wrestlers lots through like the Dave the Mark stuff. It really is a destination. Like, it really, really is. Like, chatting to Manders before the show, and he like signed my book, and he was just having a little flick through it. He just thought it was a cool thing. And I was like, mate, it's just such a cool like who's who of wrestling in terms of like the 100+ wrestlers I saw for RevPro last year. And he was like, that's why it's the place. That's why it's the place to be.
Yeah.
That's why we want to be here. And you're like, like you've literally flown halfway across the world to be here.
You can see that they're all fighting for that opportunity. Like, all it takes is for Kuro's flight not to take off when it should, and to go, well, I've got Nino Bryant here. Let's bring him in.
Yep.
Sapphire Reed gets stuck in traffic.
Danny Luna's car breaking down, and boom, Lucia Lee's back on. These are significant moments. You've got to be there to have the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, you do. And I think that everyone who had the opportunity yesterday, they knew it. And that's what I could tell throughout this. One of the threads that I really loved about the show, and kind of an overall theme that I noticed, was a sharpness from everyone. And a sharpness to kickstart the year, get it going, right? And it almost, I want to liken it to the Royal Rumble, right? Because that's everyone's kickstart of the year in the WWE. It's like, right, now we're on this road to this. That's what it almost felt like a bit yesterday. So one of the things that I noticed a lot was the wrestlers who were on more of the heelish side generally started the match by going for just a quick start, catching the opponents off guard, really getting in. And obviously Robbie did the same here. Kuro, overall, just I thought he was really, really good, connected really well. His work was great. He really grew into the match as well. I thought at one point he was going to take the win. He didn't, but I thought he would. But I'm not surprised that Robbie took it either. So I just thought it was a great little showcase to start the show, and a real trust in Kuro for being able to deliver there, because you're setting your stall out for the year ahead. So
on that note, mate, how a trust on David Francisco to come out and sell his match in Southampton.
Oh, mate.
And he delivered it so well, didn't he? Like, he looked fantastic. He talked brilliantly. He believes the shit that he's selling. Like, I don't understand how anybody could sit there in the 229 yesterday, who sometimes goes to Southampton shows, sometimes doesn't go to Southampton shows. I don't understand how anyone could sit there in the 229 and see and hear that and not think, oh, I'm definitely going on Sunday.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I know there'll be loads of people that can't go. I know there'll be loads of people where it's never even a decision to make. But for the people that travel the country going to shows for different promotions, if you hadn't got something booked for this Sunday, and David Francisco comes out and he sells that match to you, like you're buying a ticket to go, right?
Yeah.
Like because he's made it so it's already a championship match. He has reminded everybody that he's going to have this incredible atmosphere because look how heated the 229 crowd were about how much they hate Southampton. So Southampton are going to turn it up to give it back. Then you've got the RKJ element of he's going to be in Southampton. Is he going to let this match play out? Is he going to get involved? There's a whole load of elements there. You've got the Amira element where it is very clear that she is not safe around Ricky Knight Jr.
Yeah.
And I do not think that yesterday was the last time he's going to put his hands on her.
No.
I feel like a real out and out proper heel turn from RKJ is coming. I don't think we've had it yet. I feel like him attacking Oku at Uprising was part one. And him putting his, because yesterday when he came out, he was, there were elements of his promo that were a babyface promo in terms of being, he wants that feeling of being the people's number one again. He wants to be, that wonderful feeling of being champion again. Like, but then he puts his hands on a mirror and boom, immediately we got our villain of the week.
Yeah.
And then there's still that threat of how far is he prepared to go? Because pushing her to the floor is one thing. But if he did like a Kishi driver to Amira, that is, you've crossed the line. It is going to take a long time before anybody can cheer you again.
Yeah.
The same way, Sapphire Reed headbutts Sarah Hatch, and no one cheers for Sapphire Reed for what was at least 4 or 5 months before people started to start to take to the Cutthroat Collective, and they're kind of like they've got their little pocket of fans who cheer them. I think that's and that was Sarah Hatch who loved the woman, but she's not a main character of the show. To do it to Amira would be quite something.
Yeah, this segment had a lot going on, and it's funny because it's almost 2 segments, but it's drawn into one overall that you could quite easily forget that 2 different ones happened. But it was a really nice melding of everything that took on on twists and turns that meant that you were ending with different characters in the wholly different characters in the ring to what you started with. So Dave Francisco coming out. First of all, love that we've got a fuck Southampton chant in London. I think that was because when they were announcing the respect match, that was obviously teased and everyone was kind of getting ready for it, and then it was whipped from under them. And you know what? I do think there is a little bit of they want everything in London. I'm just backing up Francisco. Yeah. But no, seriously, I thought the way he delivered it was great. I thought the way that he pointed at Will and I and said, "You're from Southampton." Great. Love that he recognizes his Southampton people. So here's
I
what I
love the
found.
way he got away from RKJ.
Yeah. So what I loved about it was it, like you said, it set the stall out. Francisco believes everything he says, right? And he set us up really nicely for a couple of different things here. So he's been talking about, and I want to say quote unquote conspiracies, because he doesn't call it conspiracy, but people are conspiring against him, whether it's Ricky, whether it's RevPro management, all of this sort of stuff. And he feels like he's finally getting his due, if you will, getting the match. He's obviously he just can't talk nice about anyone. So when Ricky comes out, he's cerebral enough to kind of position it and being like, hey, you get the first shot at the title. Because what does that also give you? Well, actually, he didn't say he gets first shot. He said he gets a shot. Sorry, I correct myself. It was Ricky that suggested first shot. So what does that mean? Well, you're going into Southampton, and now you've got an ally in your corner. Because if Ricky Knight Jr. sees David Francisco as easier pickings, he could make that title change. If he sees that as his quickest way to get to the title, he could help make that title change, right? If it is about making sure that Oku is the one he takes it from, he can make sure that title doesn't change. But Francisco trying to keep him in the back pocket, I thought was really, really good. And I think it has shown the level of development Dave Francisco's managed to achieve over the last year. Where he is now is fantastic. We then move on to the segment with Ricky first. And like you said, going on a bit babyface. What was really interesting is today at lunch, I put on Epic Encounters 1 from the COVID era. I've never watched them before. And Ricky Knight Jr. is talking about being overlooked, underappreciated. I was like, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I found that really interesting. That was the one that I put on today.
He also has like a villain has to have an element of their story where you can see why they believe what they believe. And when you look at Ricky Knight Jr.'s story, there's a lot of truth behind it.
Yeah.
But he, having Zack Knight have to defend his title in his honor was done to him, but it was never done to Alex Windsor when she was out. It was never done to Mark Andrews when he was out as champion. Like, there have been modern era kind of champions who have not been able to defend their title, but Ricky's the only one who had it taken away from him.
Yeah.
And then, has he had a fair crack at winning back his title ever since? No.
Yeah.
Because he had a match with Great O'Khan that Rampage Brown came and interfered in. So you can see why he has the beliefs that he does.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's so essential, because eventually you are going to want to be able to turn him back again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to have that good guy still in there. Otherwise, you are just like doing kind of like playing on the wrestling fans' short memories, which we all know is a belief that companies have, that when actually wrestling fans tend to be the complete opposite. We have incredibly long memories because we bloody love wrestling.
Yeah, and it's generally not the RevPro style either. But then Amira came out, which I thought was really good use, because obviously we know she couldn't be away. So really great to have her. And I admit, even when the music went, I didn't even react initially, because I was just like, I'm so conditioned to hearing that music at a show that it took me a couple of seconds to realize, oh right, okay, what we got here. Now, so the promo, I didn't love the subject matter, okay, and this is a thing that I've got with wrestling as a whole. I thought the words used, I thought was just a bit cheap, okay, but, and it was the same recently in AEW with Jeff Jarrett and MJF. It's just quite reductive, and it's stuff that I feel like we've progressed past needing to use for heat, but doesn't affect me in any way. It's just, I'm just like, I've heard this before. I've heard this all through the 90s. I've heard this all through the 2000s. Give me something new. What I did like is I liked the intensity of it, right? Yeah. So while the words might not have been what I'd have gone for, I love the intensity it brought and the way they were able to play that. And like you said, making it feel like Amira was in danger.
It did genuinely feel dangerous, didn't it? Like,
it did, yeah.
And I found myself just completely mesmerised by it. I think Amira, we often sing her praises, but the woman's incredibly talented.
Yeah, she really is.
Her performances, I find myself just glued watching. Like, it is like we talked about Toni Storm earlier, and that's something. Toni Storm makes me stop everything I'm doing when I'm at home to watch and listen and react to everything that she does.
Hmm.
I think she's incredible. Um,
So, just on that, do you know who it is that Amira reminds me of the most in terms of delivery? This is going to sound
yeah,
like a really odd one, but it's Samoa Joe, right? Samoa Joe's performances and promos just feel so real and authentic. Okay,
yeah, that's yeah,
it doesn't feel like someone cutting a promo. It feels like someone talking and having a conversation,
yeah.
and it sounds
Where Samoa Joe ends and the real man starts, I don't think any wrestling fan has ever known that or will ever know it.
yeah. And I kind of get that with Amira that I don't feel like when she's up there, like she has that jovial side which you see on screen, but you also get the feeling with her that when she's talking, like the Will Ospreay promo when they were in the 229 with Oku in the lead up to High Stakes last year, it doesn't feel like a performance. It just feels like a conversation that would come out of her mouth.
Yeah,
And that's what I mean when
it's
I talk
very
about that
very
kind of,
real.
it's a very grounded, real promo style.
Mm.
So that's why, like, that's where I go to the
And
Samoa Joes.
like she was prepared to have Trent Seven put her through a table.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So there is nothing that's like off limits
Yeah,
when she's in the ring with the wrestlers.
yeah,
So you know, I would not be shocked to see Ricky get physical with her.
hmm,
But there's like, where does it end? Like,
yeah,
I could imagine, I could have, it would not go past me whatsoever to imagine a scene where Amira ends up completely wearing the crimson mask, like completely covered,
hmm,
because she would think that's brilliant. I'm going to do that. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, she's so committed that she'll put herself in positions that other people might not,
yeah. She's in service
purely
of the
for
story.
the moment, for the story. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and it just means that you you just get lost in it, really lost in it.
Yeah, and that's why like she really engrosses you in it. So like I said, and again, same goes for Ricky. I feel like I'm always kind of with Ricky. There's this line where it doesn't always. I don't always know like how much of it is the man, how much of it is the character, right? And it's a lovely line for them to be able to have in independent wrestling, especially where it is that little bit more intimate, a little closer, and all of that going on. So that's what I'm saying.
Mm.
When I can say, hey, I feel like we're past certain tropes in wrestling, but you still grabbed me with the feeling you want me to have, right? And I still got that
And
from
everything that
everything
Ricky said
around it.
still feels like something that he would say.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, and that's it, right? It's like that. While that is to me, that is just a trope in wrestling. It still feels like something that that character would say and makes sense for
Mm-hmm.
everything. So, but I loved how it ended. The thing that I picked up on, and I think this is what I last night, I've been really, really very having my ear open for things, right? Because he said, I want to be the heart and soul. And I was like, right, JJ
Yeah,
Gale, right, something's happened. I didn't know if it was gonna happen there and then, but obviously then when it came for someone needing to come out and save the day,
we needed a hero, and
we
there's
needed a
JJ
hero.
saved the day.
JJ came out. Now I know that for those who weren't at the show yesterday, basically where Dave was mentioned he's got his front row seat, I was sitting whispering sweet nothings in Dave's ear throughout the show of things. And I know I said to you, and you kind of like looked at me as if I had three heads at the time. And I said, one of the things that I like to watch, especially when I'm that close, and Mira was practically standing next to me. And when JJ was giving his promo about him going for the title, she was almost doing this thing with her face where it was like trying to keep the rage in a little bit, like almost like
Mm-hmm.
tried to be like, no, 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 no. Like, so I think this is also, I think it might not be, and I could be picking up on something she just wants to put out, again, breadcrumbs, but it just felt like another really subtle nod to that mask slipping, like we've mentioned a few times. And I'm okay, is this, do they somehow get past Ricky? And then the mask fully slips for someone like JJ. I don't know. or does Ricky take it? Because I can't. I've got two scenarios where I go, I can't see Ricky not taking the title because of all the stuff we've said about Ricky in the last year with what he really like that boost he needs, like in terms of when I say the boost, he needs a story to really grapple onto.
Yeah, something to like, properly get his teeth stuck into.
Yeah, but at the same time, I can't see Oku losing it so soon, right? And I say so soon, we don't know when the match is going to happen, but it will feel too soon, right? So, and that's a great place to be in because you're in a scenario where it doesn't feel like one of those ones where you're kind of going too early on it because you've got two great options and you want to just see both happen. So, yeah, I just thought I thought it was it was a great segment all in from everyone involved because it set up intentions for people. It set up some more intrigue for Southampton. It's given us the what involvement will Ricky have here. It set up Oku and Ricky even more with Oku not even there. I thought overall like the segment achieved really high stuff.
Really good use of time.
Yeah.
And I was really happy that a 7-match card rather than an 8-match card then had that extra kind of segment.
Yeah.
That because you think every match on the card is designed to extend the story of each wrestler's arc.
Yeah.
And instead of having a match to promote Francisco's match in Southampton or to show us this new side of RKJ,
Yeah.
or to show us JJ's intentions, we had a promo exchange where we got all of that, and it's fresh. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a break in the action.
Yeah.
And I always feel like these promo segments are really like exciting, and they make you, because it's unannounced. Everything else is announced. You know what you're getting, and you know what you're missing. But these are the things where you don't know they're coming, so they feel like an extra treat for the people that they're live.
Yeah.
And when they're really like well delivered, you feel like you've really missed out on something if you're not there.
Yeah.
I always go back to when Will Ospreay attacked Leon Slater in Sheffield as a moment that I really wish I'd been there for. And when Gabe Kidd challenged Ospreay again in Sheffield, something that I really wish I'd been there for. And it's not always the match; it's all the stuff that goes around the match or in between the matches, which can also be really impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm with you completely on that, mate. Now on to the next match tonight. I really loved this match. Really loved it.
Yeah, me too.
Kanji versus LA Taylor. So looking at cage match, this was the third longest match of the night.
Yeah, about 15 minutes, was it?
Yeah, just under 15 minutes. Loved everything about it, right? So I was really intrigued to see LA Taylor in RevPro. I've said that every time I've seen LA Taylor before, it's usually in promotions where it's a real up and coming level of talent, such as All Star South, or it's been in progress in generally multi-man matches where I don't think you really get your best kind of seeing what people are like on a singles basis. So I think this might be the first singles match I've seen of LA Taylor of this kind of caliber. So I was really intrigued by it to see kind of, I mean, I know a lot about the woman, like she has got presence, as you will have seen yesterday, just oozes presence, oozes charisma. She feels like she's 10 feet tall, like genuinely just has this, again, I don't like saying it because it's the word, but this aura about her, right? Everything about her feels big. And I was really intrigued because this was a real styles makes fights kind of match. You've got the big powerhouse and you've got the technical wrestler. And that's really the story they told. It wasn't like a really over the top elaborate story. It was a really good basic story of I've got to find a way to get this woman down, and I loved it. You saw
versus Diesel, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the vibe I got right from the start.
Yeah, Kanji attacking the base, really try to take her down. And then when she got her down, landing slams on her head and stuff like that to try and
Yeah.
get it. All of the different submission holds she was trying to get, the octopus stretch, all of that. And literally, you saw how she got the win at the end.
Everything was a proper struggle.
Yes.
Like, Kanji looked like she was struggling to get her into submission holds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it should look like that.
Yeah, of course
Because
it
should be a struggle, because LA Taylor's doing everything she can to stop Kanji from locking it in. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Kanji is like still completely underrated and underappreciated.
Yeah.
Like, I think until she holds the undisputed British Women's Championship, she'll still be underrated in my eyes.
Yeah.
She has made herself stand out from the crowd of her peers. She is unique in women's wrestling. She has nailed. She is modern day women's version of a Bret Hart.
Yeah.
The underdog, big deal, like always going to be the underdog, but you know she's an incredible wrestler, so you know she can do it. Same way like Michael Oku always looks like he's going to lose matches for 90% of the match, but you know that he can do it because if he gets the half crab on, the person's tapped him. Kanji has got the Bret Hart mold of finding a way to win whilst also maintaining that innocence and babyface like lovability. It's not just likability; people love her. I thought LA Taylor did a really, really good job of what I think is the hardest role to play in modern day wrestling, and that is the larger than average heel. It's so hard, and you see it across companies, to book a monster heel.
Yeah.
Because they have to win loads. Otherwise, they lose that aura. But I felt like LA Taylor had this really like well balanced approach to the match in the sense that she didn't dominate Kanji to the point where she then looked lessened by losing to her. She looked slow. Now, not in the way that it would be critical. She doesn't wrestle slowly. She's very, very accomplished. She's more than capable of matching the speed of the match in terms of the, moving from move to move to move. She didn't look hesitant or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I mean by she looked slow was she purposely showed that Kanji was quicker than her.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the ways that Kanji was going to win the match. And because she was, every wrestler has to have a weakness. One of my favourite ones was when Miro was in AEW and he had the, God has cursed me with my neck of sand. And it's like, he is a monster who can kill anybody. If you can get after his neck.
Yeah.
And LA Taylor is this big dominant woman who should beat every woman she gets in the ring with. But if you can out-quicken her, because she's not the quickest, and you can ground her, you'll win. Yeah. That's what you need. You need these really big, obvious weaknesses for the big, dominant heels. Otherwise, you can't book them very much. Like, you look at the number of people. Golden Boy Santos has struggled with it at times. Charlie Sterling will struggle with it. Charlie came in and had his program with JJ, and then when will we next see Charlie again? Because it's hard to book somebody like him. Unless you're going to strap him up and, make him your guy, it's really hard to book these guys to come in and keep losing. Santos he's done well with it because of the fact that he's got, And even then, I was going to say because he's with like Francisco and stuff, but actually, him losing lots of singles matches does damage his aura a little bit. It's interesting because I know that he is a babyface in other companies.
Yeah.
And a babyface monster is easier to book, I think, than a heel monster. Because the babyface can just be cheated out of victories and can be, can have moments of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you don't want the heel monster to look stupid and you don't want the heel monster to look weak.
No.
It's something that clearly wrestling companies around the world struggle with. Look at Wardlow. He was going to be the next big thing, and Tony Khan doesn't know what to do with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, also fantasy bookers of the world unite, because anyone who's ever, like, in their head fantasy booked a company or thought what they do with wrestlers, I imagine they've all struggled with it too.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that, mate, from like literally, I play a wrestling booking game, and when it comes to your big monster heels, like that is something that I can't, like, I can never. Look, I'm not professing to be some kind of massive wrestling mind here that knows all of this stuff and will do it, but what I'm kind of getting at is, like I said, you've probably come up with all these ideas for all of these, how it would work, but then you're giving this person who you're trying to fit in this mold and got all these things that you're trying to keep, like I said, keep them over, keep them seeming like they're a threat, all of that going on. It's difficult. It's really difficult, and I felt that they got the balance of it right. And I think, like you said, the struggle that it was for Kanji to win. Kanji didn't win because it felt like the reason Kanji won is because she's next level, right? That was why she won, because she is just
and I
a
really
next
like
level.
the fact that she didn't win with a roll up or something like that. She didn't have the "oh my god, I won" or that moment of winning but wanting to get out the ring quickly because LA Taylor was going to be frustrated that she lost.
Yeah,
Kanji won because she made it tap out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because
And
she found a weakness in the big monster's, physical body.
And I did
Yeah,
love from
I was
LA.
really impressed. I'd be really happy for LA Taylor to come back.
Yeah,
I
same.
would love to see her and Sky Smithson together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how often we've said how big fans of Sky Smithson we are.
Yep.
Her run when she was Queen of Southside champion in RevPro, I thought she was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Would love to see them both back. And there's the women's division. I was talking about it last year, it being such a success that we've gone from having a travelling champion to having more of a division now. There's potential for tag matches, and they don't even have to all feature the Cutthroat Collective, because you say Cutthroat Collective versus LA Taylor and Sky Smithson's a bit of a weird dynamic, but LA Taylor and Sky Smithson versus Kanji and Chantel Jordan works really nicely.
Yeah.
But and that's just two of the like babyface women coming together. I know we've seen Chantel and Kanji before, but it works just as well, really, if you put any two together. And there's so many ways you can splinter off from that. Would love to see them back for sure. And Kanji versus Mercedes Moné, is that how you see this going?
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, Kanji for me is the MVP of British women's wrestling. And she is one of the MVPs of RevPro across divisions for me as well. When I think of the last year, and I'm thinking if I do a top 5, I don't know who my whole 5 will be, but I can tell you now that it would be, and I'm counting Michael Oku and Amira as one act together. Michael Oku and Amira, Luke Jacobs, and Kanji are definitely the 3. Probably then Cutthroat Collective as an act, plus someone else. Don't know who off the top of my head, would have to think into it, but I think a non-negotiable for me there is Kanji. Like,
I think I've got a top 5. Literally, just if you're talking about which wrestlers have the most consistently high level matches, Kanji,
Hmm.
Oku, Jacobs, Mills, Zazai.
Yeah.
I think they're my top 5.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think back at the bodies of work that those 5 over 2025 had. And obviously, like, I'm in a very strong position here because I just spent 31 days recommending RevPro matches. So I've literally watched so many matches back over the last month and thought about the fact that, you know, for those 31 matches that I recommended, I put them all on a little graphic together and then sat there and been like, ooh, look how many open matches there are. Look how many Kanji matches there are. Look how many Mills matches there are. And they were just matches from the regional shows.
Yeah.
I think the biggest event that I recommended a match from was from like Epic Encounter or something like that at Stevenage. Everything else was 229 or Sheffield or Southampton.
Yeah.
Maybe a Coventry show. But yeah, I don't think that there are many people in British wrestling who wrestle more consistently high level than Kanji, and maybe it's because, you know, she appeals to me so perfectly because of, you know, anyone who listens to this knows my favorite kind of wrestling is that struggle, that mat-based technical. I like a bit of everything in there. Don't get me wrong, I bloody loved Manders versus Ike Navarro, but generally my favorite wrestling matches are, you know, Connor Mills versus Trent Seven from last year, Chris Ridgway matches, those really dirty, in the mud, slinging shit at each other, doing anything you can to get the other one to tap out. That's my favourite kind of wrestling. Kanji does it beautifully.
Yeah, she is very good in that regard. And just everything about kind of what she's been doing, that consistency. So to answer your question in a really roundabout way, yes, I do think her versus Mercedes is the plan. I think that's got to be the plan. Like, if you're, to me, I'm kind of looking at what you can reasonably expect, right? Mercedes, we don't know what schedule we've got for her. Obviously, very busy lady. I don't think that they book this and just go, we'll wing it. Like, I do think there's obviously a level of this is what we'd like. When I say they, RevPro, but also being aware that this is what we'd like, but things could change. So I think you have to book it in mind of there should definitely be 2 matches. A challenger and someone that Mercedes drops it to. Okay? They're the 2 matches that should happen over time. And for me, that one that she drops it to is Alex Windsor. Right? That is, in my mind, no one else. You've got to give Kanji the other match. Like, you just have to. There is no woman, respectfully to every woman on the roster, there is no woman that deserves it more than Kanji. And I die on that hill.
No woman who deserves it more than Kanji, to the point where I really want Kanji to be the one that takes it from her.
You know what? I'd be fully on board with that.
We talked about this before. Alex Windsor, right now at this stage of her career, can really, she can take the belt further than she took it the first time.
Yeah.
With the view that I don't know if there's work with AEW in the pipeline, but it feels like everything's in place to suggest that that's possible. She is the biggest name for me. I mean, I never have professed to be, and anyone that knows me knows that I'm actively not a fair with all the other wrestling companies in the country. But she feels like the biggest star of current British women's wrestling. And then Kanji feels like the MVP of in-ring action. I will never get bored of watching Alex versus Kanji. So if this leads to that, I'll be delighted. Let's never forget how fucking amazing Danny Luna is. And let's hope that we get to see her involvement a lot more in the future as well. It's just, as much as we can be excited about the men's championship, I feel like we can be excited about the women's championship.
Agreed.
I know that there will be people that kind of like piss all over that statement because they're like, well, how can you say that when we don't even have the women's championship in the country? It's like,
Look,
but it doesn't matter because there's still a women's division and there's still loads happening in that women's division. And when the stars align and Mercedes comes over and we get to see the match, then it will be worth the wait. Just be patient and
yeah,
understand just how big this is for the company and how unique it is for us as fans. How many people ever thought they'd get to see Mercedes Moné in a RevPro?
yeah.
And I know it hasn't happened yet, but it will happen.
Yeah, of course
And
it
it
will.
might not happen at Epic Encounter, and it might not happen at higher stakes, but it will happen. And the thing is, like, I was saying this to somebody yesterday, I can't remember who it was. RevPro only run like certain dates.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they can get Mercedes to come over and wrestle on a Wednesday night. Do you know what I mean? Like, the schedule is what the schedule is.
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes isn't going to come over and work the 229 or work Southampton or work Sheffield. It's got to be a venue of a certain size. So all the dates where they have those venues booked aren't viable. And then you've got, maybe Mercedes is free to work next weekend. Maybe she's free to work the weekend after. But if they can't book an event for those weekends whereby they can get stories leading up to a whole card, no one wants it to just be like, oh, Mercedes is here next weekend. We're going to do Mercedes versus Kanji. Boom. You want to feel like it's the big payoff to a story, not just we can book this match, let's book it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's it.
Like the MJF story was very much we have this opportunity, we've got to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But they still had enough time to work a really cool story out of it that played out not only in RevPro but also in AEW. That made it something special. It wouldn't be as good if it was just next week, you're cool, MJF versus Luke Jacobs.
Mm-hmm.
That's nowhere near as exciting. Although the match would be cool, it's nowhere near as exciting as what we've got. And that requires that little bit of patience. And I sound really preachy, and I don't mean to be. I get passionate about it.
No, mate, no, you're fine. First of all, I just want to say, anyone or you that's watching it, I just keep rubbing my nose. I'm not on cocaine. I'm just really bad itching from this fucking cold.
He's a poorly boy as George tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
So I have views on this, Dave, and I think you've said it quite well. I think there's a very big difference between wrestlers who are international based who take titles, and sometimes it feels like, is this really worth it? Okay, and that sounds horrible saying that, but what I mean is it really worth having the champion being based abroad where the title isn't going to feature as often? Okay, because we've seen, for instance, what having the cruiserweight title on Will Caven has done to increase his stock in RevPro, and you can do that by having him there week on week.
Yep, somebody could massively be benefiting by being undisputed British Women's Champion right now, and they're not because Mercedes has the belt.
Exactly, but you've got everything around that, right? You've got the whole business side of everything, right? We have seen firsthand, just on our very small channel, that averages anywhere between 80 to 130 viewers an episode, which is a good week for us. We have seen one episode currently sitting on 2,700 views because it's Mercedes led, right? I've seen another one that we've got 200 odd views in the first day, Mercedes led, right? The records that we're breaking with our videos on this very small channel are down to Mercedes. Like, I am not even going to lie, the amount of tenuous links I tried to find to put Mercedes' name into a bloody video description, hoping it'll get picked up. There is that factor, right? But, and I say this to people, like, really implore yourself to think about this. If you give a shit about British wrestling, you've got a fucking WrestleMania main event woman, like someone who transcended what women's wrestling was at a period in time. where women's wrestling was, hey, go out there, shake your ass, wear revealing clothing. Like, everyone forgets to a degree the whole give women's wrestling a chance that the
Yeah.
Bellas were involved in. But even while that was going on, Sasha Banks and Bayley were down in NXT doing stuff and actually getting on the mat with Iron Person matches and stuff like that. Like, there's so much like so many boundaries being broken, and the level of star that she is, right?
And she's working with the belt. Like,
yeah,
she's on AEW every week with that belt.
yeah, absolutely.
She's been on American talk shows. The number of RevPro on demand subscribers has gone through the roof. Andy said in an interview. Like, obviously, like, I run the Instagram channel for RevPro, so I see the numbers that everything does. I see the number of people that have viewed the page in the last 30 days, which you see from a business account, and like, it's literally 3 times more than it was when Mina was champion, and when Mina was champion, it was 3 times more than when it was anybody else before that.
Yeah,
like, it's she is, in terms of like the KPIs, she is an amazing bit of business for RevPro. And when she does perform in the UK, that show will sell out. Of course it will.
Yeah.
And when you take away all the business side of it, and you just remember that Andy Quilden is a massive wrestling fan, who said on the How to Start a Revolution that he just wants to run a professional wrestling company that he can be proud of, that his friends think is cool, rather than, being silly wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
For all of us that go to watch wrestling in venues that hold a couple of hundred people, and we're watching wrestlers who are getting, who are working 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, to fund their lives because they're the weekend warriors, hoping that one day they get to wrestle on a big stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's all that perspective, isn't it? A bit like,
yeah,
people coming over and doing this is going to benefit everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody who wrestles on the show that Mercedes wrestles on gets the exposure that she will bring to a bigger audience.
But it also adds for the fans as well, mate, because
we get to see cool
being
shit.
on this, Mercedes being on RevPro, like you said, makes it seem so much more legit to people who go, I've heard about this RevPro. Is this worth going to? Mercedes is champion. What are you being part of that? So for us fans, like, we're going to get a whole bunch of wrestlers who are probably like on the fence about RevPro, go, that is destination now, right?
Yep. Mate,
people
the number
of
kids at school, like the number of kids at school who ask me about RevPro, they see my TikTok channel is the one that the kids tend to see rather than the Instagram and the Twitter. I literally have photos of wrestlers in my classroom at school.
Yeah.
When you open the cupboards to get stuff out the cupboards, the cupboard doors are lined with photos of me and wrestlers and stuff. I've got a drink from a Revolution Pro Wrestling cup on my desk. Like, on non-uniform days at school, I wear the RevPro jumper because it's like, this is kind of reasonably smart. It's better than me, rocking up in a Sniper of the Skies t-shirt tonight. Shout out Robbie Eagles. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so I have these conversations all the time, and then the kids will be like, are there any wrestlers that we'd know? And I'd be like, you know Sasha Banks? And they'd be like, yeah, but she's the women's champion. And they're like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect to anybody, but it don't work when you say Michael Oku and Luke Jacobs and people like that, because they don't know who that is, because they're 12 and they live in Bedford and they've got no grasp of British wrestling. But they all know who Sasha Banks is.
And
they've all played with Sasha Banks on the WWE 2K game. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they've all watched a WrestleMania where she's performing on it.
Yeah, with you on that completely. And the last thing before, because I realised we've gone off on a huge tangent there, but I thought it was really important to kind of get that. When I say as well that, to me, Alex Windsor is like the match and Kanji is the one that deserves it, that's purely because I think that we're only getting 2 matches right. There is a there are a lot of women that I feel deserve that opportunity if that
Oh God,
opportunity is
yeah.
there. And you touched on Danny Luna, and I was like, the only reason I thought you would consider Danny Luna is because I just with the
TNA
politics
and
side,
AEW,
yeah.
right? Where does
But
the
then
land lie?
yeah, but then also you've got Danny Luna who's just won the DPW Women's World Championship out in the States as well. Like she is blazing a trail worldwide as well. Alex Windsor is like she was already one of the best around and is now, like you said, seemingly the last year stock has gone up as well. Like it's an exciting time for the RevPro women's division. It really,
Yeah,
really
it is,
is.
mate. It is.
So, Dave, we've got the rest of the card that we need to get through. The next match,
Better than
I
I thought it would be.
I do not smoke, but my God, did I need a cigarette after that? That was a match where in my head I was like, where do I think the limit of this match is going for like your star ratings, if you will, right? And kind of what you're expecting. And this match, I thought, right, I found my level of where I think this is. I just carried on. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I thought
It,
this, yeah.
I I thought it would be really good. I think it was better than that.
So do I.
One of the things that I really liked about it, it would
Mhm.
be so easy to book Leon Cage versus Leon Slater. Each man takes 50% of the offense. Each man gives 50%, and spam the finishers at the end, and one of them gets a free count and the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, which one's it going to be? But
Mhm.
actually, I'd say Leon Slater was the dominant performer for 70% of this match.
Agreed.
And whenever Leon Cage had the moment where he could win, it was coming as the underdog fighting from underneath.
Yeah.
And that element to it elevated the match beyond where I feel it could have gone as a 50-50 match,
Mhm.
because it showed the levels to the wrestlers.
Yeah.
It showed a clearer kind of like magnifying glass as to where they are on their arc at the moment.
Agreed.
The character work that they could use with it was really, really nice. I really liked Leon Slater's intensity as
Same.
the as kind of like the he was wrestling with a chip on his shoulder
Yeah.
because Leon Cage is the hot new thing, and it's like
Mhm.
I was the hot new thing. Now I'm just the thing.
Yeah.
You can be the hot new thing, that's fine, but you know, you can be
Mhm.
the future, but I'm the present. It's this the world is yours when I'm done with it.
I
All that
love that line.
narrative.
Yeah.
Um, it's also a match where I feel like I would like to plug once again the idea of time limit calls after 20 minutes and 25 minutes. I feel
Yeah.
like this is the perfect match that would have not benefited from it, but when in a year's time or 2 years' time they want to do another 30-minute draw, this is the match that helps them with that. So if you didn't hear my last rant about this, I'll keep it super, super simple. I believe the perfect thing that RevPro should do with their 30-minute time limit matches is no time limit announcements from Francesca until it hits the 20-minute mark, and then another one at 25 minutes. And this match was just over 25 minutes, so it would have had a 20-minute call. And then you're going to have people being like, "Ooh, is it going to go to a time limit draw?" Then the 25-minute call, and then in this case, nothing because Leon Slater won.
Yeah.
But if you normalize that, because if there'd been a 20-minute call yesterday, I think there would have been a groan from the crowd
Yeah.
because people would have been like, "Oh, it's going to a draw."
Yeah.
And you might have to bite that bullet for a couple of weeks for people to realize it doesn't mean that. But
Mhm.
long term, when you decide you want that 30-minute draw, the Leon Slater versus Zazaya, the Pac versus Will Ospreay, you know, they don't do them often. Sunshine Machine versus Velocities. But when they do it, it benefited from every time where it almost happened but didn't.
Yeah, I would agree on that. So I think you kind of need to earn it. So look, this is a conversation that you and I have had on the podcast and had privately about how much I hate, because to me it's always done in a way that telegraphs the ending. Always. Every time on AEW, there are 5 minutes remaining. Right, time limit draw. Right, we saw it in Cardiff. Right, as soon as we heard that, I was like, draw. It's happening.
Yep.
And that takes me right out of the match. Okay, so I want to suspend my disbelief. You give me a reason to be taken out of it. So, and I know you turned around to me and said the same thing. You were like, this would really benefit from that. And you were like, at this. And I was like, as long as someone definitively wins. And you were like, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. Because that would subvert expectations, right? That's what this is about. It's not.
And
Yes.
the 2 or 3 times that they do it, where you're learning that you can trust that it's not telegraphing the ending,
Exactly.
then allows you to lose your hatred of it.
Because then you know it's going to happen one day, right? And as long as it's not the thing about tropes is that they are predictable in a way that just can take you out of things. So, like you said, you earn that ability to then do the time limit draw, and you're like, cool, I'm happy with that. In the way that when AEW first started doing time limit draws, it was novel, it was new, it was like, oh, this doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started telegraphing it a bit too much. We go, right, we just need to find a different way to get there. So I liked your way of saying, get to this point, and then 5 minutes, you go, oh, okay. And then, again, you could literally have the 5 minute call and have someone win a minute later, right?
Which this would have been, I think, because I think this was 25 something.
About that, yeah. Yeah.
So you would have literally just had the 25-minute call and then it wrap up.
Yeah.
But yeah, the match itself was obviously fantastic, wasn't it? And it's one that I'm certain will be in the discussion at the end of the year for RevPro matches of the year.
Yeah.
And I know that it's recent. I know people will say recency bias. It's the first show of the year, but it's also Leon Cage versus Leon Slater.
It felt special.
It did. Special. It really did. And I cannot believe that they will put on 19 matches better than that this year, where you're not going into your top 10 at the end of the year thinking about the top 20 and narrowing it down. This is going to be in that 20 matches where you're like, oh, what about this one? That was really good. Like Millie McKenzie versus Kanji didn't make my top 10 of last year. I feel like it should have done in hindsight. That's how much I loved it, but it's so hard to do a top 10. It still was a match of the year contender.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a company that runs 45 shows a year, 7, 8, 9 matches a card, to be in the top 10, 12, 15, 20 matches of the year is incredible. And this will be, I'm certain of it.
Yeah, I'm certain of it as well. Like it was so good. Just because obviously I think the best thing I can say to people is rather than us talk through everything of this, is just go and watch it if you haven't
done so already.
It. But
I'm going to write. I decided during the match, I was like, I'm going to have to write about this week. This is too good for me not to write about.
Yeah.
So I'll put a match recommendation out for it later on in the week. If you don't have access to RevPro on demand and you can't justify the monthly payout, then I'll write a little piece and you can mark out with me on it.
The other bits I just want to kind of touch on that I just picked up that I really liked from the match. Like you said, the statures of where they are in their career. These lads aren't that different age profile. Okay, I think age-wise, they are pretty much like the age between me and you, which is nothing, right?
Yeah.
Unless
you're pretty much spot on, actually.
Yeah, unless you're on the wrong side of 40, then it is everything. But seriously, like they are so close. But Leon Slater has so much more experience at a higher level. When I say higher level, I mean with companies around the world and such. And
in wrestling years, like he's in experience.
Yeah,
he's like 5 to 10 years older. At least that's how he presented.
Yeah,
you know.
There was also as well one of the things I really loved. Now we know Slater is a tall guy anyway. If you watch it, there was one shot that really lined up where Cage is opposite him looking up, and Slater is towering over him, but where he's been packing on the muscle as well, like physically, like I don't know what to describe it. It's like when you kind of watch a film and you see like the big all conquering like monster just taking the whole silhouette of the hero and being like, oh my god, how am I going to defeat this? Like
Yeah.
it
Proper heavyweight Leon
a
these
shit,
days. Isn't
yeah, a shit comparison, but it's when the hobbits face the dragon or something like that. Like
it?
that's what it feels like. Sorry to Leon KJ, you're not a hobbit, mate. It's just that big tower. Yeah, there was that. And the final thing I wanted to put on was, you mentioned as well, a chip on his shoulder. The one thing I noticed with Leon Slater, everything had that bit more of a snap to it.
Yeah.
Okay? And he's always very smooth in what he does, but it all had a bit more of an extra snap to it. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, it's going to be up there for at least match of the 229. Definitely on the top 10 at the end of the year, I reckon. Though.
What did you think of Stephen Wolf beating Will Caven pretty well cleanly, but also relatively? I was going to say relatively like straightforward.
Yeah, it
Quite
was.
Dominant win. Maybe that's not fair. Actually, Caven hit the tombstone and Wolf kicked out of it, but
yeah.
I was expecting a little bit more from this in terms of I was expecting a different finish to it. I was expecting it to be a bit more kind of a bit more overly produced in the terms of like maybe some shenanigans, some attempted interference. I was expecting there to be more to it other than Stephen Wolf beat Will Caven in a really good one-on-one match.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm never keen on champions getting pinned.
So, in terms of the actual result, the result is what I expected. I expected Stephen Wolf to pin Will Caven.
I predicted that Caven would win, but in such a way that it justified Wolf still getting a title shot as a retribution.
Yeah, so I can't say the result caught me off guard. It was what I was expecting. And I think it's, for me, I find it really fresh and interesting. Now, I know what you're saying, but again, because they don't do it very often, it's not WWE in the way that someone gets a pin to get a match, right? Realistically,
it is also Caven, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not pinning champion Michael Oku. I know he got pinned by Zazaya, but that was the whole point of making a star out of Zazaya.
Yeah,
this is Will Caven, who, when he won the title, did it as a shock to everybody because Caven never wins, and Caven is nobody wants Caven to win. Caven is he's like a gremlin of RevPro, isn't he? Like he's the unpopular guy. So I get that it works well there because it's not like just because he's the champion, he's suddenly now going to have 100% win record. Maybe it was just one where it's like because I'd kind of written this story in my head of what would happen.
And that happens,
and then
right?
they went a different way with it, where I'm like, oh, I quite liked what I'd come up with.
Yeah. I liked that he went for the belt and then that didn't pay off and that kind of almost led into the finish as well. I like that. I felt like the match.
He did hit. I mean, I can't remember Caven hitting the tombstone and many people kicking out of it. He either doesn't hit it or he wins with it.
Yeah.
So that was quite cool. And it gets what I want, which is a title match. And I'm hoping that that's a title match for Sheffield.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Robbie X versus Stephen Wolf match kind of complicates that, right?
So here's what I think is going to happen here, right? And this has kind of been marinated in my brain all day. I think it's either going to build up to one of two things. It's going to build up to either a multi-man, which we don't see very often in RevPro, right? Or is it going to build up to a scenario where you've got Robbie X and Stephen Wolf are going to feud with each other, right? So obviously Stephen Wolf's here to go for the Cruiserweight title. He wants that title. He said that he wants that title. and he comes in, he beats the champion, right? So he has earned himself a title match. But does he earn himself the title match, or has he still got the title match by the time come out of Southampton? Because what if Robbie X beats him? Then does that mean that earned title match as well? I pinned the guy who pinned the champion, so I'm next in line. Do they occupy each other with stuff back and forth that means that Leo Rush goes, hey, now's the time for me to come and get my spot? Wolverhampton, like, you've got that as well. So,
just playing with ideas.
Yeah.
Stephen Wolf versus Will Caven. I know I probably sounded negative about it, and I didn't mean to, because I really enjoyed the match. So that was a success. It was a really good match.
Yeah.
Really good reintroduction to Stephen Wolf.
I feel as well,
Stephen
mate.
Wolf versus Robbie X, I think, will be a really good match.
Yeah.
So what if Robbie wins that? What if that then prompts we both have a reason why we think we should be number one contender in Sheffield, Stephen Wolf versus Robbie X, 2 out of 3 falls.
Yeah. Like that idea.
The winner of that wrestles Caven at the Hang.
Yeah. Love that idea
like,
too.
There's loads of bangers just to get to where we think we've already got, which is Caven defending his title at some point.
Yeah. Like, and you've got all of those different things you could play in. One of the things as well I really want to say about the match is I felt it really delivered in making the most of its time.
Yeah, how long was it?
It was, I think it was just under 10, or just over 10 minutes, or just under 10 minutes. 10 minutes, 47 seconds.
Interesting. So, I wouldn't have said that it was longer. It was only about 2/3 of the time that LA Taylor versus Kanji was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have said they felt like they lasted about the same amount of time.
Yeah, yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's it was
That's
the second
really efficient use of their match time, isn't it?
Second shortest match of the night, and it was
main event being the shortest one.
Yeah, really efficient use of the time. Yeah, I was really a fan of the match. Going on to the next match, our friend of the podcast, the bloke, the twat, the fucker. One called Manders versus
How lovely was it to hear just how much love there was for Manders?
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because we got to see firsthand, right, like just how nice a bloke he was, right? And he came over and did that Jacob show, and he obviously connected with people. But like I said, this is the first time he's been in RevPro since then, and he's only done one UK show, and that was GCW. Yep. But I saw the buzz going around GCW for him, right? And everyone going, "Oh, I met Manders. He's such a lovely guy, such a lovely guy." And
he's so genuine.
Yeah. So this is what I kind of said was like, he feels genuine, and I just kind of want to share a story that I saw happen, right? So this lad went to Manders' desk and he was chatting to him, and he was telling Manders that he was training to be a wrestler. And he was like, "What school are you at?" And it turns out that one of the guys that Manders trained with out in Illinois is one of the trainers at the school this young lad on the South Coast is at. It just happened to know because he was like, "Oh yeah, such and such." He went, "Does this guy work?" This was Manders saying this to the kid, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" Like you really got your finger on the pulse, haven't you, mate?
Yeah.
And
he loves pro wrestling, right?
He does. Yeah.
He absolutely lives and breathes it.
Yeah. So he was like saying to this kid, he was like, put his hands on his shoulders. He's like, "Do you know the AC/DC song?" He says, "It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll." And the kid was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Fucking don't." But yeah, he's just going with it because there's Manders there. And he was like, "Yeah." He went, "That's what you got to do in wrestling." And he was like, looking him right in the eyes. And it was amazing to watch. Other little things kind of where I see it with Manders, it's the genuineness is, he was like saying goodbye to people. Like as me and Will were leaving like the show the last time, he was like, "Oh, bye, Will." Like, and I was like, "You've only met this lad today."
Yeah.
He turned up yesterday, did not say a thing to Manders, and Manders was like, "Oh, Will, hi." I was just like, this guy's remembering faces, remembering people, and get a genuine connection, and that is his strength.
It's so not expected or needed, but
No.
he does it anyway, and that's just that says everything about the fella. Like
Yeah.
I absolutely adore him. I think he's wonderful, and his match was like I stood up to give it a standing ovation at the end, and
Same.
it was one of those ones where then lots of people did, but it wasn't a unanimous standing ovation. But that was head and shoulders the best Ike Navarro match we've had in RevPro.
Yep.
He got. I don't want to praise Manders when I should be praising Navarro, but it takes two to tango, right?
Of course it does.
And
Yeah.
between them, they managed to get Navarro's character out so much more than
Yeah.
Navarro and Oku did, or Navarro and Robbie X did, or Navarro and Luke Jacobs did.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
watching it thinking, right, I get you now, Navarro. I get what you're trying to give me. I'm getting.
Yeah.
Before it was like, some things are obvious. The style of the wrestler is obvious. The entrance tells you quite a lot. What they're wearing tells you quite a lot. How they interact with the crowd tells you quite a lot. But I didn't feel like I had the full picture.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday I was like, no, I get it now. And also, I really like it. I think there's quite a lot of comedy in Ike Navarro. And I think that that's something that's really quite fun to tap into. He is like if he hears this, he won't understand this phrase because it's such a British and American sort of an American phrase, really. But he shows arse, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's not afraid to make himself look stupid in front of other people.
Yeah.
And that's a really fun thing. Like the Miz, to use a WWE example, is so good at making himself look stupid on camera.
Yeah.
To the entertainment of the whole segment. And I feel like Navarro gave Manders some of that yesterday, and it worked brilliantly. Their match was just two balls banging heads the entire time, right?
Yeah. So what you said there about the character side of Navarro and the comedy side, I'm really glad you touched that, Dave, because that's the bit I've always struggled with him on, right? So when he came out, I found, like you said, there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of hodgepodge of ideas that for me didn't feel fit, right? And then it felt like, was he being comedic or was he doing something that was unintentionally comedic, but not in a way that kind of fit what I was expecting from him? So that was always a big limiter of Ike Navarro for me. Always was. And I think that was the reason I didn't connect with him. Yesterday, it felt like all these ideas starting to come out. And like you said, I think Manders has got a cheeky quality to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we've said it, like he's American, but he also understands British humor, right? He gets it. And until he, I say, has to turn up and get really intense and whatnot, because I imagine that will come at some point in RevPro. He's going to need to do that real intensity. And he does it throughout the match at times, obviously, but for now, he's the lovable fan favorite. He can have that bit more of a comedy side, which Ike Navarro can then get that out a bit more as well. I was actually impressed, and I wasn't. I was looking forward to Manders. I can't say I was massively looking forward to Iker in the way I'd have liked to, because the first two matches of his just didn't really resonate with me. But he really turned me around with the performance. And like you said, Manders was great, but it takes two to tango. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a carry job. Iker put his effort into that. He made it like the comedy. It's the right kind of comedy and humor for a guy of his size, stature, and the opponent he was up against as well. I was impressed by it.
Yeah. I know. I come away from it. So I remember saying to you during the match, I was like, or just as it finished, I was like, when do we get Manders versus Ishii? When do we get Manders versus Gabe Kidd? When do we get Manders versus RKJ?
Yeah.
And that's always told me that the guy's done a good job because I'm planning for his future.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, who in RevPro am I really keen to see Ike Navarro wrestle? And it's more a case of being like, who do I think he could have a really entertaining match with? not necessarily like before I'd be like, ooh, in theory, Navarro versus Luke Jacobs is the match. But that match, when it was in Spain, maybe because I wasn't there, but Navarro versus Luke Jacobs in Spain didn't do for me what I thought it would. And then you're like, well, actually, Navarro versus David Francisco, Navarro versus Josh James, who I think is very good at wrestling against people he's worked so well with Francisco, who can add comedy to his work really well. Like, that could be a really entertaining match. I'd love to see him wrestle. I would love to see him. I know it's probably not going to happen, but like Eddie Dennis, like where you've got someone who's really capable of adding that element of kind of humor to their work. I feel like it's an interesting facet to his game that I didn't know he had. I don't want to pigeonhole him and be like, right, that's it. He's now the second coming of Matt. But I'd like to see that side of him more, because it was the thing that I enjoyed most about him yesterday.
Look, I mean, you don't have to have comedy and be a wrestler who's a comedy wrestler, right? Eddie Guerrero is a prime example of this. Is a guy who did something silly, a bit funny, but was so good at what he did, like in the ring, that when he did something silly in the ring, it just made we're like, oh, we love this guy, we love him, right? Manders as well, right? He was using comedic elements, not necessarily in a comedy way, but to endear people to him. So using comedy in the right way is a really great tool in wrestling. And I feel like Iker is starting to get fit. Now, when you just said that about who he could go against, I immediately had two names pop in my head. And it was quite funny you said Luke Jacobs, because I think what you were saying there about Luke Jacobs, right? So it's not that wasn't the match just didn't click in the way that we probably thought it would. Because I was the same as you. I was like,
also probably because of the fact that it wasn't one of the featured matches. Like, it wasn't the big. It wasn't Grizzled Young Vets versus Blacklist. It wasn't Zazaya versus Oku. And I was watching it after the fact on a stream, not the same as if I was there at the time.
Yeah. The two names that just jumped out at me, because I think sometimes you can go like put these two stars together, where Iker and Jacobs you thought would yield the same results as Iker versus Manders, and they didn't, right? For me, they didn't, but that's fine because that happens. But the two guys I think you could put them against, and use that comedic side with their very straight-laced, intense personalities, Ethan Allen and Chris Ridgway.
Yeah.
Either of those. Could you imagine Ethan Allen, like him trying to do some of those comedy spots, and Ethan Allen just being like, fuck off?
I can literally. So I'm when you said both of them, I pictured both of their heads with steam coming out of their ears.
Yeah.
Because they would just get so infuriated with it.
Yeah. So
what did you did Barcelona Blacklist versus Young Guns deliver what you wanted it to?
Okay. I'm gonna sound controversial here. It didn't reach the levels that I hoped for it, or that I thought it would get from an in-ring. Okay. But I had this on a pedestal. Okay. So could it have ever got there? I don't know. Right. I think they'd have needed the time and place on the card. It was 19 minutes, which was still a very good amount of time. But I feel like it needed the time and place on the card that Leon versus Leon got, probably for me to. So I think if this was the opener or the third, I think I'd probably be feeling different about it. I don't know, but and if they got that bit more time, potentially.
Interesting that you came in saying I'm going to be controversial, because I thought that was going to be me.
Okay.
I thought it did reach the heights that I thought it would, and then probably went on for 2 or 3 minutes longer than it needed to.
And I wonder if that's played into it with me for a bit as well.
I felt like it should have finished on around the 15-minute mark, maybe 16-minute mark.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The end felt a little bit like, I don't want it to sound bad, but I was kind of like sitting there thinking like, oh, that's going to be the finish. And you're like, oh, well, surely this is going to finish. They're going to wrap it up in a minute. It's like, it was like when somebody gives like a speech and you're literally like ready to applaud and you're like, oh, there we go. No, that's not the end. They're going on to another little bit now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, not quite. And it was a little bit like that. But I do think the match was really, really good. And it's just literally, I think, you know, trying to look at things with. We're a very positive podcast, right? We're very positive about RevPro. But trying to be kind of fair and like objective with it. I felt like it was probably a little bit longer than it needed to be. But I thought that Joey Torres and Cito Sanchez, again, we can get overexcited with people. And we can, you know, just because somebody has a really good match with someone doesn't mean that they're capable of doing that again and again and again. So there was a part of me that was curious to see, would they be able to maintain the high levels that they've achieved with their matches so far? And I was really pleased that they could.
Yeah.
I like the fact that Young Guns are going after the tag titles. Feel like that's the right play. Ethan Allen continues to be one of my favourite wrestlers to watch anywhere in the world. I don't think I could, like, literally, if I was going to create my own wrestler, you know, like WWE 2K or whatever, create your own wrestler, I would create Ethan Allen. Like, he is everything I love. If I was a wrestler and I could wrestle any way, I would want to wrestle like Ethan Allen. Like, everything he does just gets me. We picked up on a couple of things, right?
Yeah. Before we get into that, just one thing I want to add, because I don't think we'll circle back around to it. What I loved was the feeling that Barcelona Blacklist invoked when it came out. The music, the way they presented themselves, the energy they had going around.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like, I felt a buzz in
They
there.
didn't look like they were intimidated by the crowd with the venue. And the 229 can be, because one, you're wrestling in London, and that is, you know, for wrestlers from Europe, coming to London is probably like on their like bucket list of things they want to do in wrestling. Then you know you're auditioning. It's not the most, like, it must be quite an intimidating venue.
Of course,
because it's small, it's compact, the fans are on top of you, but it's really well lit, so there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
You come out and you come out into the fans. You're literally just there with them. I've seen people wrestle at the 229 and maybe not, like, they shrink into themselves a little bit, and these boys didn't in the slightest. Completely get that.
But yeah, Dave, what did you pick up on when you
picked up? It's interesting, right?
Turned to me and I see the same thing.
Yeah, like I noticed it, and I looked back at you, and you were looking at me as if to be like, I saw that too. I heard it. There were a few times when Ethan Allen was in the ring, and Luke Jacobs was on the corner, and he was calling Ethan to come and tag him in, and Ethan said no. And it was interesting because it was like, on one side, Luke's like, "Come on, get me in! Like, I'm pissed off. I want to vent. I want to kick the shit out of these little twats." You know, like, he's got that energy to him. And Ethan's like, "Nah, I'm having too much fun. It's my turn." Like, they're almost kind of arguing over who gets to beat the crap out of the two new boys.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it was also a little bit of just them not quite being on the same page.
Yes.
And was it enough of a breadcrumb to suggest anything? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're really stuck at their work. Maybe this was more obvious than we thought, and loads of people picked up on it. but it certainly wasn't overacted. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. It was
It
just
wasn't
normal
like,
tone.
oh, we're going to do this and see if the fans pick up on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was
Yeah.
definitely there, right? And it was more than once.
I think it will be something that potentially, because I haven't watched it back yet. I don't know if you have, but I definitely think this is something that will probably come up more by watching it on demand than will have done in the venue. Because
that's a really good point, actually. I wonder if Dave Bradshaw or Gideon referenced it on commentary.
I'm going to go
because
and
if
watch
they
it
do,
back after
that
this.
kind of suggests that this was a tactical
Yeah.
breadcrumb.
Yeah.
And if they don't, maybe we're the marks that we are
picking up on things.
overseeing things.
Yeah.
But even if that's the case, I don't care, because now I feel like I understand their dynamic a little bit even more than before.
Yeah. What
I'm still desperate one day to see Luke Jacobs versus Ethan Allen.
I feel
but
that
I don't want it. I don't want it as a heel turn or a one turning on the other. I just want to.
I don't think it will.
To see it in a tournament.
A tournament would be good.
Or a number one contenders match or something where it's like we don't want to fight each other, but we have to fight each other because we've been told to by our boss, and we both want to win because we want what comes from winning.
So you know what I could kind of see, right? And the kind of the dynamic that I was picking it up as yesterday was, is Luke the one that feels like he's in charge? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Luke is the former champion. Or is Ethan projecting that onto Luke? Okay. Projecting
Luke's like big brother, right? Like, like he's every friendship, when you have been friends for as long as they've been friends, when you've grown up with somebody, every friendship has an alpha and a beta, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone's got one
Dave
who,
where
should we go for dinner? I want Chinese. I want Indian. Oh, okay, we'll have Indian then.
Yeah.
Or do you know what I mean? Like there's always one where they've got, whether it's 60% and 40%, or whether it's 90% and 10%, one has more influence
sway,
on the other. And Luke has always felt like that one.
Yeah.
Interesting. But again, this is the fun of it, right?
Exactly.
These are three-dimensional characters.
I mean, when I can say for this match, that like for me, much like you, the only takeaway is really a little bit too long, and I think, you know, when I said it didn't quite reach the heights, one of the things you tapped on quite nicely at the end there that I'd probably say is the amount of false finishes for Luke and Ethan to just win. Right? Yes, it made Barcelona Blacklist look strong, but I feel like there's only a certain amount of times that you can do it without getting away with them winning. Okay, and I feel it when
you can almost make somebody look too strong.
Yeah, I think it
because
just went...
now it's like, okay, well, when they wrestle next and they lose, is the other team going to have to do the exact same thing?
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I do want to touch on before we finish up on this match, I just found really interesting at the end, was the only the two of us can call ourselves Northwest Strong.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, because I don't see where that leads.
And who's wrestling on Sunday in Southampton against Jay Joshua? One half of the undisputed British Tag Team Champions, I'll add. Chris Ridgway.
And also, so look, just do a very quick. I'm trying to look at the card for Southampton that we've got, because I know, like we said, we've got a few matches. Ridgway, Jay Joshua,
Oku. We've got Manders versus Leon Slater. Ridgway versus Jay Joshua.
Yeah.
RKJ versus Leon Cage.
Mm-hmm. Robbie X, Stephen Wolf.
Robbie X versus Stephen Wolf, yeah.
But also, I know from him posting his dates, Ethan Allen is on Southampton.
Yes.
So you've got to think that gets you.
And you assume that means it's going to be Young Guns
versus someone. Okay, so do you have a scenario?
Young Guns versus the Bryant brothers. I would love Young Guns to just like murk them in like 8 minutes.
Yep.
Not squash, but a dominant short victory.
Do you get old Teddy Ray and someone else who's been around before, who are part of the extended Northwest Strong? Do you get them in a match with them? Like, there's again.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one.
Be interesting to see how
the old
this
rat boy back.
Yeah, be interested to see how it progresses, but it will also be interested to see what the significance is. Okay, because at the minute, even if yes, it's significant, you could just set up some stories. I don't see why that's significant that I should care, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. I want to be taken.
And no, they don't. Nobody says anything in wrestling without it meaning something.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know that it's something there.
Yeah,
is being teased.
Lovely. Right. So
main event, my friend.
Main event.
Fucking lovely, wasn't it?
There's a lot I can say about this, mate. It was beautiful. It was just soul destroying.
It was moving, wasn't it?
It was moving. It was emotional. There was hope.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing to say.
Happiness. It was a genuine celebration for a person and an appreciation for a person. And before
you know what, the actual match kind of feels a little bit irrelevant and secondary.
It does
all of those things.
And that was kind of, I was really worried about coming into this, right? Because we do look at the show through a very critical lens, right? Because this is what we love. We love getting into the minutiae of it. And I don't feel this is the match to do that, because we've got someone who's returning back after so long, who was visibly, you could see what that
she looked like she was going to cry when she first came out.
But what I do want to do, the person I want to give flowers to as well, is Sapphire.
Yeah,
the amazing job she did.
She knew her role perfectly, didn't she?
The first bit that I really loved, right, was she allowed Zoe to bask in the cheers, but did it in such a dickhead way that made complete sense for her to do it, right? So it's the Cutthroat Collective.
She didn't abandon her character, but she still gave Zoe her moment.
Exactly. And I really loved how they did that. I thought that played perfectly. I love how she was trying to play spoiler throughout. Look, we kind of pictured all kinds of scenarios for the end, didn't we? Is it going to be like, I think I said at one point, Zoe's going to win, and you were like, I think she might lose, but with this, I was like, yeah, and I agree. And then I think we both came to the, well, she's probably going to lose, and that's fine. Like, it set up a story, but actually, I think sometimes we can get too much into the moment of the wrestling. That actually, this was the right decision.
They did it perfectly, because Zoe won.
Yeah.
Whilst also it sets up more for the future.
Yeah.
Zoe wins. Saf doesn't get, like, her ass handed to her.
No, it was the flash pin.
Yeah, and it was, it was what, 9.5 minutes, and it was like, for someone who has not wrestled for such a long time, she did an incredible job, and there was so much to Zoe Lucas that I loved, and I can't wait to watch her wrestle more, because like, with reps and with matches and stuff, like, your actual the wrestling can improve and things like that, and there'll be, if I'm not saying that it needs to, but if she felt there was any ring rust or anything like that, that sheds off.
Of course, yeah.
But the class that was underneath it, like the timing of that, of the moment where she was leaning back on her legs, and then she just lifted her body up, and it was just like, that was literally like a WWE, an AEW, like,
it was a resurrection. Yeah,
it was so good. It was so above the kind of, it's a moment you associate with big budget TV wrestling, not your independent wrestling. Do you know what I mean? And that's not to sound critical,
No.
but it was so perfectly executed, and like her facial expressions and her selling and her humor and her comedy side of her wrestling, like there's so much good there.
Yeah.
And like I really enjoyed the match. I thought that I don't think that she showed like ring rust. I think I think it was clearly a match where it was one of those ones where you just kind of just got to get through it and get to
Yeah.
the other side of it because it's such an emotional moment.
Of course. Yeah.
Um, but there was so much stuff within it that I was like, "Ooh, I want to watch more Zoe Lucas matches."
Yeah.
Um,
I was like that with the
Zoe
match
Lucas
itself.
versus Lizzie Evo's the one I want next.
Yeah, I think that'd be
I
a
feel like
really,
that could be
really good
so
one.
much fun.
Yeah, so do I. So like I said, I haven't seen a ton of Zoe Lucas matches, right? And and what I've seen, I've been like, yeah, there's definitely some good stuff there. Some of the bits I saw, and I was just intrigued. I was like seeing her live for the first time, and I thought some of the stuff that she was doing, I've obviously seen videos of her, like preparing for a comeback, and even though there was times when, like I've said before, her strikes, her kicks, like she did some really great ways of doing some unique kind of kicks. And I thought the way the strikes came out really looked really, really good. Like I said, if there's a thing of ring rust, it definitely didn't seem it there. Like it definitely seemed like the time was put in there, it was ready. I love that little scorpion kick she does. And I saw a
Mhm.
Sapphire blocking that. I was like, nah, not
Yeah, I love
today.
that because it was like
Yeah,
it's showing that Saf's watched them.
yeah.
Zoe Lucas might not know too much about Sapphire Reed, but Sapphire Reed definitely knows about Zoe
Yeah,
Lucas.
exactly. There was that. I love that. Oh, things have changed around here because look, the last time Zoe Lucas was in a RevPro ring, Sapphire was literally a teenager.
Yeah, it's
Like,
mental.
and I don't even mean teenager in that, oh, she was 19. Like, she was a teenager, which
Yeah.
is crazy, right? That's the time period we're talking here that Zoe's obviously been out for. Um, I thought it was all done perfectly. I thought her music choice as well. I don't know what there's some themes. I just don't know what it is with some pieces of music where it just feels like, again, I use the term hope, right? And I have a playlist on my Spotify that's basically songs that just make me feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm 19 again, like the whole world is in front of me, and it's a really weird
I
playlist.
have
I
the
don't
opposite.
like. I mean, I that's generally the rest of my music, but sometimes I just
My
I
playlist is dominated by Radiohead and Nick Cave.
I just have that playlist that sometimes when I need that, I just need to feel like anything in the world is possible. That's what that song left me feeling as well. I don't know. It was just everything about that moment felt special being in there for it. And I think I saw someone post it said, now is the time the hard work starts now. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward for her is she's had that moment and the moment she gave the fans afterwards that all went to see her. Look, she has gone out there and done something really emotional, right? And as I was waiting at the merch table, there was a couple of times again it looked like a wobble might be coming, but the way she was speaking with people, having the chat, and genuinely just lovely, funny. Like I walked up and she said to me, she's like, "Oh, nice t-shirt, by the way." Like just playing down a little bit, and it's like, okay, cool, this is nice, and um, like just chatting away. Like you think that she's like, I mean, obviously she's very good at what she does, but you think that she's been around as much more frequently than she has. But I think there's this inherent natural charisma performer.
Oh
I
yeah.
implore everyone to go and listen to the A Squared Circle podcast where they interview Zoe because I listened to this one towards the tail end of the summer last year, I think, maybe into the autumn, and I loved it. Like it was one of my favorite. Like again, you hear the personality. If you watch any of the videos that James Musselwhite does on photography when he has his wrestling guests on, especially Zoe, you can see again the comedy. Again, to use the phrase that you said there earlier, Dave, like show us, like you're making yourself look that bit silly, that bit vulnerable. Like you kind of get all of that coming through, and kind of all of those things came through in various ways for just a really special moment. And I
Yeah.
loved that she was getting announced as a former champion,
Yeah.
because then it means
Former
that
Queen of the Ring, former
when she
undisputed British
beats,
Women's
yeah,
Champion.
just tell it,
I didn't.
reminding people what she's about.
I didn't go and speak to her at the end. I wanted everybody else. I wanted everybody that had something to say to her to get to say it, and more importantly, I wanted people to go and buy her merch. And I knew that I weren't buying any merch yesterday. But I've only ever had one in-person interaction with her, and I'm so fond of it that I was like, oh, maybe there'll be a time when I don't like wasting wrestlers' time at the merch table.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
if I'm going to get something signed, I get it signed and I fuck off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't.
Look,
If I'm buying something, I'll buy something and then I'll go. Like,
it's
I
lovely to
want them
chat,
to make
but
money. I
it's
want
a
them to
it's a
make
business
money, and if I'm not
transaction at the end
giving
of the
it,
day.
then. But my one interaction with Zoe was at the 12th anniversary show, and I walked past her. So I was walking to my seat, and she was working the show like production wise, and she
Fuck,
walked
she was
past me.
everywhere. She was
Yeah,
everywhere that
and
night.
just as she walked past me, she looked at me and she just smiled and went, "Nice shirt," and kept walking.
Yeah.
And it was like a moment where I was like, "What am I wearing?" Oh. And I was wearing my James Castle t-shirt. And
Yeah.
I don't
No.
generally think that much about what I'm wearing. So like yesterday, I wore a Hiroshi Tanahashi t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not someone where it's like, ooh, Danny Luna's wrestling this show, I'll wear a Danny Luna t-shirt or anything like that. I just throw a t-shirt on. Like, I just pick one that I haven't worn for a while. And I put and it was just that moment where you're like, it was just a really nice little moment.
It was nice,
a really nice little interaction. She didn't know who I
Yeah.
was. I'd never met her before, but it's just that you also like.
Yeah, I get you.
I will always. I'm a huge. I never got to meet Jamie Castle, but I am a huge fan of his through my love of deep diving RevPro on demand.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much good stuff on there. And so I love wearing his shirt because he's genuinely one of my favorite RevPro wrestlers of all time. Like, there are so many cool things that I love that he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really fond of that memory.
Yeah, no, I get that. Look, James Castle, I didn't have much as a RevPro fan. Like I said, I only watched one of his matches, and I was there live for, and that was a long time ago. That again, like I kind of forgot that I'd seen that. But my fond memories of him would be that he was obviously a fellow Man United fan and would constantly be on Twitter bitching about Man United. And he and I would have a lot of exchanges about it, both being United fans. So that's where my fond memories come, is finding someone else who I thought, actually, this is a fellow United fan that talks sense and is on my wavelength as well. I really enjoyed that element as well.
So I suppose, like, when you look back, like one of the forming kind of projects that I did for the kind of where DaveTheMark.com and all the stuff that I do now all kind of originated in me just doing random I like making Twitter threads.
Yeah.
And then eventually that kind of evolved to the point where I got really frustrated by how much you can write in a tweet. So I was like, maybe I'll get somewhere where I can write more. But one of the original ones was my, like, going back and watching all the RevPro shows, and I'd put up a little thing about the shows. And I used to talk to him quite a lot through Twitter, because he'd always like comment on the posts that were about his matches and stuff. And sometimes he'd send me a message and tell me like a funny story about that match or something like that. And he just
amazing.
At that point, I didn't know that the fella wasn't well, because I didn't know him.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you find out that it's like, this dude's not well and he's using some of the time that he has to talk to me, like, that's actually quite moving.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because not to get too deep, I've had those thoughts like, what would I do with my time, like, if that was me in that scenario? And you do have that feeling of, well, I'd probably spend all my time doing, like, no offense, this podcast would probably be no more of that, wasn't it? I'd be like, no, I'm just not doing any of that. So, like you said, the fact that this guy is taking that time to do that, like share those memories and just share those stories, mate. What a lovely, lovely thing. And
Yeah.
I'm just so glad to kind of like in the wake of something, because look, I've said all of that stuff there, and when I was at fucking Summer Sizzler, mate, I was standing there bawling my eyes out like a baby, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I mentioned that is not to make it about me, but one is I didn't have that big a connection with the guy, but the love that was felt in there for the people that it matters
And
the most about.
the pain that you can see in the people that you do have a connection with.
Yeah, and I lost one of my best friends when I was young, right? When he was 21, and I felt that. That's what I felt. I felt that, and I did not go in there expecting to feel any kind of emotion. Like I was all in, as everyone knows. I was like, right, we're gonna go in here. We're gonna make loads of noise in this match. We're not gonna let up. Like we're gonna go in here.
Yeah.
That was my intention the whole time. I sat there silent through that match, right, and I just couldn't do anything. And the reason, kind of again, I want to share that is that's how I was feeling, and I didn't have that connection. And you've got Zoe going in there doing what she did, and like all that emotion that would be kind of, you can have, well, I say you don't want to talk for it, but you can imagine was all there front and center before she came out of that door.
Just 4 years of life.
Yeah.
From the last time she was there to this time that she's there.
Yeah.
And obviously she's never been to the 229 before as a wrestler, but the last time she was in front of a RevPro crowd. I'm really excited to see what's next for Zoe.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we know how much more there is. Like, she said she's choosing to be happy. Was that a one and done? Did she just want to do that? Did she just want to scratch that itch?
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that she's going to come back and now wrestle every month.
Yeah.
Like, whatever she does, she'll do to be happy, I hope. Yeah. And therefore we'll enjoy every part of it, every minute of it that we get.
Absolutely. And look, Dave, that to me seems like a great place to leave it.
Perfect way to end, my friend. It's been a long one tonight, mate, but it's I think that's just because we've been so excited to talk about RevPro again after 6 weeks of talking around the issue. Now we get to the meat and the bones of it.
Absolutely. So, Dave, I'm going to do a very quick fire at the end. I want you to give me your initial gut feeling. Who is winning these matches? Robbie X versus Stephen Wolf in Southampton.
Robbie X.
Leon Cage versus RKJ.
RKJ.
Chris Ridgway versus Jay Joshua.
Oh. Jay Joshua.
One called Manders versus Leon Slater.
Leon Slater.
And finally, David Francisco versus Michael Oku.
Michael Oku.
I think I agree with on all of those, but the one I'm not sure on at all is when I saw the pain on your face, Manders and Leon Slater. And just, I want to touch very quickly and say, the thing that we said last week about Cage versus Slater, the ramifications it has across divisions, that one also has that as well. So,
mate, like, I think with the RKJ versus Leon Cage match, I think I'm like 95% sure RKJ wins that.
Yeah.
But all the other matches, there is a huge level of jeopardy in in the result. Oku and Francisco, like, everything in me tells me that Oku's retaining, but I can see how they could do it with Francisco winning. I could even see him, Francisco, winning it and then losing it next week. Like, literally, it'd be like
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's something there. But in terms of the three other matches, Stephen Wolf versus Robbie X, Ridgway versus Jay Joshua, and Manders versus Leon Slater. Flip a coin for each one.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be so good,
Love
Dave. Southampton this weekend. Yes, right. Until then, everyone, we are out of here. Catch you later.